All right, so had to stop. Had to fluff the mustache back up. Ran out of batteries. We got some new ones. We got to finish those two terms right there. So let's do this. We good? Close to spectacular. All right. So FDR, like I said, he's in, and he's got some problems in his second term. Okay, he really does have some problems in his second term. We're going to have some issues with court packing. We'll talk about that. We're going to see some Soviet recognition. Have we been talking to the Soviets? Why not? Because they're Bolshevik. And we don't talk to communists because communists are evil, wicked, and nasty. But what's going to cause us to really kind of befriend the Soviet Union? Yeah, there's a crisis in Europe going on. We can see Frankie D. Who's he sitting with? Winston Churchill. Yeah, his main man from World War I, Winston Churchill. So, let's get into this stuff. With this court packing, FDR is pretty upset. All right, he's pretty upset at the Supreme Court. Why would he be upset at the Supreme Court?
They ruled 2 of his new deals unconstitutional.
Yeah. 2 of his new dealings have been hit. Which one? What was the first one? NIRA. The second? AAA. Good. So in February 1937, FDR is going to announce and introduce some judicial reform. Today we call it court packing. Okay, court packing. New Deal programs were going to the Supreme Court, and he was losing. He was losing typically by a vote of 5-4. Okay, in the Supreme Court, you have 9 justices. You had what was known as the 4 horsemen, who always stayed together. They were ultra conservative, and then you had a Judge Roberts who began to swing with the 4 horsemen. And so we see FDR losing a lot of stuff by a 5-4 margin. Okay. FDR's solution is to change the size of the Supreme Court. Why would he want to increase the number of the Supreme Court? Yeah. Who gets to nominate new justices? The president. And so if he can change the size, then the court won't invalidate the deal. Okay? His proposal in this court packing is that for every judge in the federal system, if they are over the age of 70, FDR could appoint another judge. They were over the age of 70, he could appoint another judge. All right. Now he put on himself a 50 judge limit, so he can't put more than 50 more judges. Now, what are we really concerned with here? What specific court? The Supreme Court. Of the 9 justices on the Supreme Court, 6 of them are over the age of 70. So in theory, he could take the Supreme Court from 9 members to... Come on, people. 9 plus 6 equals 15.
Yeah.
0.7.
I blame you, math department. That's simple stuff.
So couldn't you appoint people over 70 and just keep appointing people?
Oh.
Ooh, I like your style.
Ooh.
I like that. But there's a 50 person limit, so, but you could, I guess. Now, this is a huge mistake. All right, this is absolutely a huge mistake. Even his own party, the Democrats, are going to run from this. The Senate Judiciary shot it down. In July, the full Senate sent it back to Congress by a vote of 70-25. Overwhelmingly, Democrats control the Senate, and yet they're going to send this thing back. Congress is not interested, so FDR starts pressuring the court himself. Okay. In May, one of the 4 horsemen, a guy named Van Devanter, all-name team member, Van Devanter, retired. That got rid of one of those 4 very conservative judges. And at that point, we start seeing Roberts, that guy that was swinging with the 4 horsemen. he comes back and starts voting more. What we're going to see at that point, FDR now has a majority. Instead of losing things 5-4, he is now winning, what, 7-2, 6-3, somewhere in there. All right. Now, even though it all worked out for him, this is still a mistake. All right. And I say it's a mistake because the Supreme Court is not supposed to be political. The Supreme Court is simply supposed to interpret the Constitution and judge on the constitutionality of a given case. Okay? It is not supposed to be an extension of the political machine. Okay? So, keep that in your mind with current events. Now, this New Deal stuff. At this point, we're kind of in the New Deal. New Deal really is going to last until 1938. 1939, FDR is not going to propose any new legislation during his State of the Union address. And so, overall, we look at the New Deal. The New Deal, yes, it reformed, but it didn't recover. Okay? Unemployment was still high. We did offer some direct relief. And we saw a tremendous amount of expanded executive privilege in the executive branch. But really what this New Deal is going to do is transform the U.S. party system. Remember, I told you, we flip-flopped several times. This is going to really solidify one of the most recent changes. And what we see is this New Deal is going to bring in the era of the Democrats. Okay? We are going to have, for the most part, Democratic rule until Nixon. So that'll be 68. So, you know, we've got quite a span of Democrats coming up. All right? Without focusing on domestic new dealings, the big issues at this point are what's going on abroad. Okay? What's going on abroad? U.S. hadn't had formal relations with the Soviet Union since Wilson. Okay? We have not really had any relations since Wilson. FDR wants to improve the relations with the Soviet Union. All right? This is what's known as Soviet recognition. Okay? Soviet recognition. And that's largely because the Soviet Union was a huge market for U.S. goods. Okay? Huge market. FDR, though, is going to face a lot of opposition. Okay? He's going to face a lot of opposition. Catholic leaders are against this. Labor leaders are against it. Even the U.S. State Department, the Secretary of State, Hull, he was against it. Okay? Because Hull, the Secretary of State, was against Soviet recognition, FDR is going to see, excuse me, I have a sip of water. He's going to send Henry Morgenthau, who is the Secretary of the Treasury, to go and negotiate. Later on, when more serious negotiations began, Hull was in attendance. All right. The guy that the U.S. needs to talk to is a guy named Maxim Litvinov. Okay. Litvinov wanted to speak with FDR on November 10th, 1933. Litvinov and FDR are going to sit down and have a chat. They're going to resolve their differences, the big differences being the religious practices, the propaganda, and the debt issues. All right? At this point, the Soviet Union owed the United States $600 million. Okay? So we're going to resolve these issues, and on November 17th, papers would be signed, and the U.S. now has formal relations with the Soviet Union. All right? So, we can see FDR sitting with this guy. Who's that? That's Stalin. And so we see the timing of this is perfect because tomorrow when we get in here, what are we going to talk about? Yeah, there you go. Now, as promised, you guys have a short answer practice question. Remember, for short answer, we're looking for each thing here for A, for B, for C. We're looking for somewhere between 2 to 3 sentences. Okay? 2 to 3 sentences. Be forward, be direct, use complete sentences. If you've been told that you can kind of like make checklists, you can't. It has to be complete sentences. All right? So, you've got 2 passages here and 3 things to do. Again, how many sentences should you be writing for each prompt? 2 to 3, which means at max you would have for this how many? 9 sentences. Okay? Make sure that you label them A, B, and C. Okay? So, from my party people out here in La La Land, take a look. Like I said, you can get this on Itzel, or you can pause that right there.
Yeah, Bob probably doesn't have Itzel.
Bob, you don't have Itzel. So you can just look at that. Alright, when we get in here tomorrow, we will get into war mobilization efforts and the crisis in Europe. This is Monty, and I'm out.